All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. I'm here with Desarae O'Hanlon from right here in Bismarck. Desarae, how are you?
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. So Desarae lives here in Bismarck. You're originally from Minneapolis, is that correct?
Kind of. I moved around a lot as a kid. I was born in Billings, Montana.
Okay, but then you were in Minneapolis, moved to Turtle Lake, North Dakota, and now you live
Yep.
in Bismarck, correct? Okay, cool. So Desarae, you are a parent, wife, mother, homeschool teacher. You wear many hats. How long have you been teaching homeschool?
Well, it started, it would be 15 years ago with our eldest daughter, who's 21 now. We never sent her to public school, so we started homeschooling immediately with her up until 6th grade. By the time she was in 6th grade, we were living in Turtle Lake, North Dakota. It was different from inner city Minnesota. We decided we'd give the public school a try. And we had three other kids at that time under her that eventually started to trickle in the school system also. And she did finish in public school from 7th until 12th grade. When we went back to homeschooling, though, with our middle three, they were 3rd and 4th grade when we pulled them out. I have twins, so 2 4th graders. She wanted to go back to homeschool, to tell you the truth, her senior year, but I wasn't going to do that her senior year. I did not want to jump into trying to figure out that's just a whole different game. And so we brought the 3 middles home and started homeschooling them again. And that was a different experience than how it was with having an only child or one child we were homeschooling. It was different. So I've been altogether homeschooling for, I think, 11, 12 years now.
Wow. Okay. So, ton of experience in homeschool. How would you say that homeschooling differs from, say, the public school model? And
Well,
that's a loaded question because it could differ, right? Different ways from household to household, school. But just in general, what do you say?
In general, okay. In general, I would say public school, the day is longer. Homeschool, the day can be much more shorter. You're not going in between classes. You're not having pep rallies. You don't have a lot of that extra stuff that absorbs some of the time. Homeschooling is more flexible. If your husband is working on a Wednesday off on a Wednesday, you can do your school on a Saturday and have that day off with him. If your child is having some meltdowns or some struggles and you just know it's not a good time to even try to study at that time or to educate them and they need something else, you can just stop and go back to it later. As a homeschool, you get to make your own schedule. You get to really decide what a child needs in education, their learning styles, and you can tailor it to them. You can really scale it a lot better. And it's really different. For my child that I first homeschooled, I kind of did it in a public school way, I guess, but it didn't work quite as well as I wish I would have done a little bit different. But when I had my 3 middles, I could not homeschool the way I homeschooled her. It was not going to work because they were all in different grade levels. There's different things going on. You have 3 of them rather than just the one. Mm-hmm. And so I had to change a lot of things I did. And I actually, with the 3 middles, reached out and asked for help more than I did with my youngest one. I learned how to seek out resources. And so with them, I learned a lot about one-room schoolhousing, going back to the old days where they'd have multiple grades together and learning where you can teach and learn together the same topic, but maybe go deeper with the older kids. Mm-hmm. I learned a lot about stop checking boxes, stop dotting I's, crossing T's, having this perfect, a perfect schedule, Monday through Friday, doing it 8 in the morning until 3. I learned how to be more flexible. And I really learned it wasn't me sitting at a chalkboard in front of my kids and teaching them like you would a public school. It was a lot more different. I had to change. It was more sitting next to them. And it was learning also to teach them to be more independent with their studies, but always be ready to help them when they get stumped, especially the older you go. It was also learning that the younger grades, they do not need as much instruction in a formal setting. Like just
Okay.
even my youngest, my 7-year-old right now, all we do is a timeline song. She's learning history timeline from the creation of the world to present day. And we've all learned that. My older kids have too. It's so neat because when we read the newspaper or we hear people talk, older people, we can connect history events to what's going on, and we can see cause and effect from just learning this history timeline to song. She also
Sure.
learns facts in science. She learns facts in history, math laws. Like from a very young age, you start memorizing. And I used to be completely against memorizing because I don't memorize well. I used to be like, we have the internet, we can just look it up. But some people showed me the value in teaching young ones to memorize, and it's incredible because they're in developmental different stages. K through 6th grade, a lot of it, they are absorbing information. They're taking it as the best time to just teach them a lot of facts and memorize it, even if they don't understand the hows or the whys at that time. Then you hit
Mhm.
like 7th, 8th, and 9th grade, and you start playing with these facts. You start digging in, like how they connect, what's going on in the world. Cartography, that's been amazing. I know the world by memory now. Like when people talk about places, I know how big that country is, and I know about the population. And with history, I'm connecting them all, and we're playing and having conversations and discussions. And when you start hitting 10th to 12th grade, that's where they start to learn to be the teachers. They learn to be the role models. They learn to express what they know, to reason, to rationalize. So it's very different than what public school does. I think at times, not all of them, they have wonderful teachers, don't get me wrong, but I think at times they might move a little too fast and they might miss developmental stones, if that makes any sense. And
Sure.
so the younger years, if you just work on some memorization, math facts especially, get them to memorize those multiplication tables, get them to memorize math laws, and then the rest of the time, play with them, play some games, do some crafts, do cooking. If your kid's mechanical, let them start playing with the car with you, changing the oil. Fourth graders, even, talking
Mhm.
to them, asking them questions. Like what parents don't realize, and I know so many people are discouraged right now and overwhelmed. They're like, I'm not a teacher. And all of a sudden, I'm being forced to be a teacher. But you are. Everybody taught their own children to walk, everybody taught their own children to speak. Every day, everything you're doing, you are teaching your children. You're teaching them how to respond to different things in the world. So just use those opportunities when you're cooking, asking the measurements. Hey, how do I double? Like, I want to double this recipe. What's the math involved? What do I do? You can teach your kids throughout the day with whatever you're doing and whatever you're interested in and they're interested in. And it can be a
So
lot
instead
more
of
fun.
looking at it through in a textbook, you can actually apply it to everyday uses. Now, Desiree, one thing is when you began telling that story was you learned how to find resources, and that's one
Yes.
thing I really wanted to share today. Were some of the resources that over the years you've come across and you've been able to.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, do you mind if we get into those? I know the first one, I call it con, you call it can, I say tomato, you say tomato, but the Khan Academy looks like it has some free resources. Would you mind going to the Khan Academy and kind of what it may have to offer some people? And I brought it up here on the screen.
Sure. So this is a resource that's recommended by public school and homeschoolers. Some people will actually use it and use their full curriculum setups. Depending on the family, the kid, the age, that can be beneficial. I will tell you, I'm very leery about younger kids being put in front of a computer to learn. There's areas you can use it, but then it's just figuring out where they're at and what's best for them. Older kids, definitely, this could be a great source for a lot, like a full science curriculum, full English. But how I use it is if I'm struggling with their math lesson that day, and let's say we don't understand reciprocals or we don't understand how to add negative numbers or whatever it is, I can come here. It's almost like an educational YouTube is kind of how I use
Okay.
it. So I might Google reciprocals and it will give me videos on reciprocals. And the thing I love about this source is it doesn't just teach patterns, it teaches you how and why. And like I was telling you earlier, the one thing that's amazing to me with that is if a child can understand the concept of what they're learning and the why, and this is a little bit older years, then when they come across this problem, like in a word problem or in a different, just looks different to them, they can ask themselves these questions of like, what math laws are being used? What kind of problem is this? Oh yeah, this is how I work this, and this is why I work this. They can learn that on their own, in a sense.
Okay. So Desiree, one thing that we discussed right before we came on that I was pretty excited about was that the Khan Academy has some daily schedules. And now I know depending on where you're at, scheduling can be very different. But one thing that I noticed, whether you're a fan of schedules or you're not a fan of schedules, one thing that I took away from it was there's a lot less time devoted to work than one may think. And what I mean by that is when I was looking at for my children are 4 and 6. So when I was looking at pre-K through kindergarten, there was actually an hour and 40 minutes of work time throughout the day, plus a 60-minute podcast. And then it jumped up to about 3 hours for middle school and about 4 hours for high school, plus 60-minute podcast. And between each work point was a lot of physical activity. So it seemed to me that, the Khan Academy, like myself, thinks that physical activity really feeds the brain and is going to help kids come along. But I think it also may help parents like myself that have never done this before. Where when we started, we're going, okay, how are we going to fill 6 hours with work, with schoolwork? And it turns out that's not actually what you have to do.
Correct. Yep.
So that's just what I took away from seeing the schedule on the Khan Academy. The next one that you had mentioned was reflex math.
Yes.
So if you could get into reflex math, kind of what you think that it offers and what people should expect when they go into reflex math.
Okay. So again, this one is recommended by public schoolers. I actually received this little nice nugget from our special ed instructor at the public school my kids used to attend. I'm not a huge go online for a lot of things when it comes to education. I'm going to just tell you that right up front. So these two sources I'm giving you, they're good if I'm going to recommend them. This will help your kids with their math facts. Math facts are key. So many kids are starting to miss out on memorizing their math facts, and it makes math extremely slow. You get up into the upper years, and you're so busy trying to figure out what 6 times 7 is and doing little dots and all of this on your paper, you get frustrated with math. You're tired and overwhelmed with math. You already kind of feel like a failure with math because you just can't move fast enough. And so this is awesome. And they also have a free 60-day trial now. That's awesome. I only had a 15-day trial. But your kid will actually go through maybe even 10 pages of math fact work in one little session playing games. Because one, they teach fact families that helps them to put things in categories, but then you play games where you can't continue on. Like there's this little ninja guy for one that my kids loved, and he jumped from log to log, but you couldn't continue unless you could answer the math fact and get him to jump to that log, and he would eventually sink down and die if you didn't come up with it. But the thing is the kids love gaming. They love playing video games.
Sure.
And so for them, they didn't feel like they were doing much work. They were having fun.
And with a 60-day trial, we've got 4 or 5 weeks left of school. Maybe good resources for parents to use for free and try it out. And go back to school next year, which everyone I think is hoping. Then maybe you just get this free resource to use and help with math in the meantime. So I was taking a look at it and I thought, wow, 60 days, it's free. This is great. So the next one was from counting to calculus. Hold on a second here. I'm going to bring up from counting to calculus. Okay, why don't you tell us a little bit about from counting to calculus?
Okay, this is a game changer for me. Amazing book. You, without having to go through math courses and take the time a student would have to take to learn concepts, This is a great source for parents and even older students too, to use to understand concepts they're struggling with in a little different manner. There's no fluff in this. It's just straight to the point. And so if you're struggling, again, I love to use reciprocals as an example just because I struggled with the Y back then, but you can just quickly look up reciprocals. Or if you're struggling with decimals or long division and you just like, oh, that was so long ago, I don't remember, how do I do long division? As a parent, you can flip, it's going to tell you how to do it. And my daughter, when she was taking calculus, I said, could you look at the calculus and tell me how accurate is this information? Like, would this help somebody? And she said it was pretty accurate and it was pretty helpful. Of course, you'd have to read all the other chapters to get caught up to calculus at that point, because calculus is a different monster, but it's an awesome source. I really enjoy this book.
Okay. And so there's one more math, and then we've got Rainbow Resources. I'm going to go ahead and pull Rainbow Resources up. But while I'm doing that, why don't you tell us a little bit about Rainbow Resources and what people should expect?
Okay. I'll get back to that in a second because I showed you the mother tongue, the English one, through Rainbow Resources.
Yep.
But Rainbow Resources does deserve to be looked at. This, I've been ordering from these guys for the whole 15 years. They are a homeschool family and they run as a homeschool family, but they have the cheapest resources new that I can find anywhere. There's no one else that usually can beat their prices unless it's used. So they are a great source. They're also awesome to call and talk to and say, hey, I forgot about this. But if you say, hey, my kid's really struggling with this math, this is what they're getting hung up on, do you have a different curriculum that might work for them? They are great at listening to you describe your child, and they will, the best they can, say, why don't you try this?
Okay.
So they're a good source.
So, Desarae, I value your opinion and I value your experience. If you had one piece of advice for parents that were not planning on homeschooling their children but are currently doing so, what would it be?
It would be to relax. And this is one thing that I don't think I shared with you, Jeff. You guys should probably know my own education background. I was in special ed until 6th grade. It wasn't that I actually had a label. It was probably some things of how I was being raised, divorced parents, whatever, moved all the time, had holes in my education, just struggled. But I was up, and then I dropped out in 9th grade, and I ended up eventually going back to an ALC, and I did do a little bit of community college, but my education was extremely lacking. Like, along with my children, I have been redeeming my education. My daughter, who I started homeschooling years upon years ago, I mean, our family thought we were crazy because look at my education. What could I offer this kid?
Sure.
But she ended up going off to college. She has 2 years under her belt. She's in basic training right now. She's at the top of her class. She got a 95% on the intelligence test that they took this week. She's going to go back to college when she comes out. I mean, I didn't screw her up that bad, right? And I had her for 6 years. So there's no way you guys are going to screw up your kids in 5 weeks, let me tell you. And if anybody falls in love with this and wants to continue, you're going to be okay. I'm going to tell you right now, the teachers in the school, they have lesson plans. And I'm sure they always overplan because you don't really sometimes know how long something's going to take. I'm sure that they are not checking every box and getting everything done that they think they should. So to relax. And the public school is different. You have to travel to classes. There's interruptions, especially if you have classes of 30. I mean, a lot of that time is dealing with a lot more than the basic education itself.
Sure.
And if you at this time get to teach your child how to learn. You get to say, I don't know. I don't remember that. But hey, you know what? I know how to use the internet. I know how to use the library. I know how to find the answer to this. And I know how to persevere in this. That teaches your kids amazing things, not to just say, I don't know, so I give up. It teaches them how, like, I don't know, but that's okay. We can learn together. That was one thing with my daughter. When she went back to public school or went to public school for her first time, I had teachers tell me, I don't know what you did, but she's amazing. We don't have to sit there and tell her, go do this, go do that. She knew how to sit down how to study on her own if needed. She was a huge resource in the class. They were pretty amazed by her, and I'm just blessed to know that. And then my kids, when I pulled them from home, and this is what you guys are probably dealing with, when I brought them from public school, they were used to, and I hate to say it this way, I don't know, they were used to kind of like a herd mentality, like go to this class, go here, being told what to do constantly. And so I had to go through for about a year of training and teaching them how to take the initiative to take on certain studies that they knew they could start without me, because I couldn't be with all of them 24/7. I mean, I'd be working with someone over here. You couldn't have someone on pause. They needed then, oh, at this point, I know how to go read a book, so I'll do my reading time now. They needed to learn that. We also had to go through a time of, it took about a year to, I'm the teacher now. I'm not just your parent. Well, I've always been your teacher, but I mean, official teacher right now. I'm the one that's responsible for your education. Even if you're attached to a public school and they're asking you to do certain things, you're the one in front of your kid at that moment saying, we need to do our math, we need to do this. It takes children a while to be okay with that, to be like, oh, well, okay, you're the teacher. I need to respect that. I need to do what you asked me to do. And you are valuable. You have some things to say, and I can learn from you. And then also, I noticed when they were in public school, we didn't have a chance to get to heart issues sometimes, a lot of times. We were too busy. Public school, homeschool, activities after school, run, 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 run. That when all of a sudden we were all together, there was a lot of heart issues I had missed. And we had to address those to be able to teach them. So my biggest advice would be to relax, enjoy the relationship with your kids, catch up in areas you've been missing because you didn't have a chance, you were too busy. Find your kids' weak areas. If it's multiplication tables, if it's something else, work on some of those things and then have fun with them. Play games, cook together, ask them hobbies, find hobbies to work on.
So Desarae, if anybody has maybe some questions or would like some individual tips, you have given me an email address, which it's running at the bottom of the screen on the ticker, homeencouragement2020@gmail.com. Folks, I want to be very clear about something. Desarae is doing this out of the care for her community. She's doing this out of the goodness of her heart. She's not asking for money. This is not a subscription. This is just an experienced homeschool teacher and mother that is willing to help you if you feel like you need it. So, Desarae, some things that you had mentioned you wanted to know was how many kids and what their ages are. So again, folks, if you have any questions, it's down at the bottom. Don't worry about scratching it down now. Just because it's live, it's going to stay on the White House Realty Facebook page, and anybody that shares it will be able to see this. So homeencouragement2020@gmail.com. Let Desarae know how many kids you have and their ages. And not only are you going to help people out, Desarae, right, but you've also reached out to other experienced homeschool teachers that may be able to help them out. So can you tell us a little bit about what your plan is or what your thoughts are there?
Well, it depends on how many people contact me, but obviously if it's a few, I can handle that. But if it's more than a few, I need help. That's why I'm asking for how many kids you have in your ages, because it would be best to pair you with a family that has similar ages and maybe the same amount. If you have 5 kids and you need help, it would be wrong to pair someone that has 1 kid, because homeschool looks different depending on how many kids and what ages they are. So I have a community. I have people all over North Dakota, and some people have told me, sure, send people my way, and they would love to answer your questions, to point you to resources. They're not going to tutor with you. They're not going to sit beside you, because we're already doing quite a bit in our own homes, and we already have our own groups that we work with each other. But we'll help you set up groups amongst this new public homeschool population going on. Jeff, you were talking about that, maybe having a parent that's strong in math help out another parent that's not so strong in math, and vice versa. So it's kind of finding out what you guys are struggling with, what you want help with. Maybe you don't even know, and you just want to call and talk. Just say, could you call me and just hear what you have to say, and I'll give you some tips, point you to the resource, the the direction. That was one big thing that I had to learn, was to learn how to dig up resources and find answers to the things that were not working in our home. And there was one other thing before we forget. I wanted to make sure and say something. As you guys are working with your public schools in this, communicate. If the work the teacher is giving you isn't working for some reason, to you anyways, or seems like a lot of work, but you have another idea you'd like to do, just ask them. Say, hey, you know what? You've recommended that we do this, or you've told me to do this, but do you think I could do this with my kid instead? Like, work with them, communicate with them. This is all new to them too. They have been asked all of a sudden, be a teacher from a distance and equip these parents. They don't know how to do that. Nothing's been wrote of how to handle this situation. It's all new to them too. So make sure you are communicating with your teachers at the public school, telling them what you need, what you don't see working, and offering solutions to them of what you think might help in your home. Because if you just go and say, I don't know, they're going to be like, I don't know either. But if you have an idea, they might be like, hey, that sounds like a great idea. Yeah, give that a try. Or, wow, you know what? I'm going to ask my other parents to try that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Good. That's good advice. So again, homeencouragement2020@gmail.com. Desarae, thank you. Folks, before we go, please stay right there. I will be at Roosevelt Elementary if you're familiar with it, where you drop kids off, on Monday, April 27th. I will have some homeschool survival kits. I know we're heading into the home stretch, and we've been doing this for about 4 weeks. We'll have about 4 weeks left when this starts. I've started a GoFundMe page to help with getting resources, whether it's paper, pencils, calculators, that maybe kids need right now. I know we can do a lot of it online, but as we've seen, online doesn't always work. So you are welcome to go into the GoFundMe, $1, $2. Frankly, if we come up with $0, I will do it all myself. But our kids are our foundation of our communities, and sometimes it does take a village, and right now is one of those times. So again, on Monday, April 27th, I don't have a time yet. I will get that out there. I will be at Roosevelt Elementary School in Mandan, passing out school supplies. Hopefully we only need it for 4 weeks, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. So Desarae O'Hanlon, I can't thank you enough. Again, folks, if you see Home Encouragement 2020 in Gmail, if you have any questions or feel like you need any help at all, reach out to Desarae. She's a great resource. She's a wonderful person, and she is willing to help you help us, and she's already helped me. So again, thank you so much, Desarae. We appreciate it.
Yeah, for asking me.
Yeah, everybody out there, I'm a parent. Desirae's a parent. We know that the struggle is real, but hopefully it's over soon enough. We're all in this together. I know you're tired of hearing it, but wash your hands, and we'll all catch you later. So again, Desirae, thank you so much, and everybody stay safe.